Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Tuesday afternoon. On the show today, we will get into some Big 12 basketball. Texas has the week off. They don't play again till a huge matchup with Houston in Houston on Saturday. But the Big 12 action is continuing with a pretty big win. I'd say an upset. On the road or at home. For the team that pulls the upset last night. We'll get into that, some more games tonight. The NBA action was happening last night. Wemby did something pretty unbelievable again in the NBA. We'll get into all of that. Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day, enjoying bringing you guys on board with the show. The Combine invites are out. Another good piece of news, including that one for the Texas Longhorns. Keep going on about the Super Bowl. A little more thoughts about the Cowboys and what they need to do this offseason, and a little draft talk as we get there. For the next few months, we'll be kind of sliding in draft talk as well because, we still want to talk football with you guys, and as long as you guys want to talk football, we'll do it. And you know how you guys can talk with us. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. You guys drive the show. I just try to keep it on the rails, and that means whatever you guys want to talk about, we will talk about on the show. You just throw it on there, and we'll talk with you. You know, if you have hot takes, if you have theories about what your team needs to do to be competitive, now that we're done with the Super Bowl, if you know how to get there next season, if you're a big NBA fan, you know how. Your Rockets or your Mavs or your Spurs or whatever team you root for. If you know how they got to get there and what they got to do, I'd love to hear your theories and your takes of what needs to happen, and we can have that discussion. If you're a Texas basketball fan, where are they going to be going in the next few weeks with a tough road matchups? Keep sending those in. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. We will get into more college football talk, more NFL talk, more Super Bowl talk, all of that in hour 2 in the 5 o'clock hour. But if you guys have text messages you want to send in, we may get into it a little bit sooner. But I do want to start off. I hope everybody's having a good Tuesday now. I was out yesterday doing a few errands too after the game and dealing with stuff. I'm still very much on board that the Monday after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday while we all digest the food and the drinks and the game. And, traffic seemed pretty light last night. I think it's some people, either they're working from home or they took it off. They said, you know what, the day after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday. It's the most watched telecast in TV history, I believe is what they said. And if you can't have that, be a holiday afterwards. And we all decided we're going to watch this game. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to hang out with friends. And let's just have a day off the next day, and everybody can mentally get back in the right frame of mind to go back into work when football season's over. But no, and I'll still come in. I'll still do my job for you guys. But I hope some of you got to take the day off yesterday. I hope some of you got to enjoy not going into work the day after the Super Bowl or working from home or whatever you got to do yesterday. Because I did notice the roads were light, the stores were light. Everything seemed a little less crowded yesterday, which is always a plus. I get to have a, unusual schedule where, I work, and I do work throughout the day, but I do some stuff from the house, and then I'm doing stuff here at the studio, and then I'm doing the show, and then I have some more stuff I have to do after the show. So there's a lot, but in between, I can take breaks and go to the store. So I usually can find times that aren't so bad, but yesterday it was even lighter than normal everywhere I went. So I'm assuming some people took it off. You businesses just need to learn. National holiday day after the Super Bowl. I'm on board for it. Let's talk some college basketball, though, to start off the show. And if, a team that did, one of these teams may have taken a holiday. It seems like one of these teams took a holiday. There was a couple games yesterday in the Big 12. Of course, the big one was number 6 Kansas heading to Texas Tech, heading to Lubbock, in a matchup that you wanted to see. This Texas Tech team has had a little bit of problem, some health issues, and just issues getting, the shots to go down, and weren't necessarily, their offense was not always clicking on a high level. It's done pretty well at home, but on the road it has been a subject of some criticism. They did not have that problem playing at home against a Kansas team that looked like they were starting to turn the corner and get better and better as time was going on. They lose to Texas Tech last night, 79-50. That is a blowout against the number 6 team in the country for Texas Tech. They showed up to play, and we can say Darian Williams had a game. 12 of 12 from the field for Darian Williams. He goes 4 for 4 from 3. He even went 2 for 2 for free throws. Everything he put up went in for Darian Williams in that game. He has 30 points, 11 rebounds in the game, a big reason why Texas Tech is able to get it done against this Kansas team that have been playing much better, has had some struggles scoring on the road, and they did in this as well. I've talked a lot about Johnny Furphy. Is when you look at that Kansas team, you need him to play well because some of their other guys don't necessarily perform at a super high level, and you can tell he's just a really talented young kid that has a height advantage and is able to get inside and get himself open at points and score. He did okay in the game, but their star players that they really want to go with. KJ Adams goes 1 for 10. Hunter Dickinson goes 2 for 12. DeJuan Harris goes 2 for 8. And the Texas Tech defense was there to play for it, and the offense showed up as well, and that comes together for a big win for Texas Tech, showing that home court advantage in Lubbock, showing Longhorn fans it is not going to be an easy task when they have to go there in a few weeks and play Texas Tech in Lubbock. They hold them to 32% shooting and 19% from three is what Texas Tech is able to hold Kansas to. And then it's something that's even a more outlandish stat than that to me is when a team shoots that bad, you expect them at least to have some effort rebounds. They have 4 offensive rebounds in the game, Kansas does. And you just you can't shoot as badly as Kansas did in this game and then not be able to get the offensive rebound. That effort for that team this year, they just don't feel like they're a very talented team. They feel like they're a player or two short. They only had a few players that really played. I think they had 6 men who really played heavy minutes in this game for them. They just don't feel like they had the depth. They don't feel like they have the competition in practice maybe to make them really push for this. You get a Hunter Dickinson in who comes in from Michigan, is supposed to be one of the big transfers to come in. He's been good at moments, but hasn't shown that fire to really want to take this Kansas team where they feel like they can go. There's still time left in the season for Kansas to find the on-off switch and turn on the intensity. But this matchup going into Lubbock, for what it's worth for Texas Tech, they just sapped the will to live or still the will to play from this Kansas team. Because, you shoot 32% from the field and you have 4 offensive rebounds. Bill Self, I don't know if you even can show him this film afterwards. Like, this is you just have to ream him for the rest of the week to try and get him to show any more effort when they come back out on the weekend. But that is a big win for Texas Tech. And once again, it's those road games in the Big 12. It is just hard to win on the road. And we'll see that tonight. We get a good matchup, number 25 Oklahoma at number 12 Baylor. This one, it feels like a home court game as well. Oklahoma's defense has been pretty good. Their offense has struggled on the road. Baylor at home, though, has looked really good. OU's 2-3 on the road. They're playing tonight. If we can see Missy for Baylor, who had a really big 21-point game in his last outing over the weekend, if he continues to improve for this Baylor team, that is a sight that Scott Drew could really like going into the tournament. If they can get those freshmen that they've been trying to play and maybe have not been playing super consistent, if they can start getting going, and that's what you take into the Big 12 tournament and into the NCAA tournament, the Baylor team will be someone to look out for if those freshmen can step up because they have some really good freshmen on that team. They just haven't been performing consistently at that level. We'll see if Missy can put 2 big games together against an Oklahoma team that's pretty good. Every time they've looked like they're about to be done in the Big 12, they've shown signs of life. We'll see if they can show some against Baylor tonight. And then another matchup where home court's going to be talked about. Iowa State, number 10 Iowa State is at Cincinnati. We know Iowa State can go play on the road. We know Iowa State has finishers, and that's kind of what the story of this game is going to be. We've seen with Cincinnati, they seem so close, especially at home, of a team that's really competing in the Big 12. And they just haven't been able to close out games. They haven't been able to find the guys in the clutch moments for Cincinnati to close out these home games. They're going to have to figure out a way against a good Iowa State team that is closing out these games, as Texas fans know. But this is a game where I'm giving the edge to Iowa State solely in the fact that I feel it's going to be close. And when it comes down to it, Iowa State has the players to make the big plays at the end of the game. And I'm not sure that Cincinnati does. They're going to have to figure that out, but you have to use your advantage on this one. And if rebounding, if Cincinnati can get enough offensive rebounds and if Cincinnati can get enough defensive rebounds to not allow Iowa State second chance points, they can use their size and their strength and get the home court advantage on rebounding, they have a real shot in this game, but they need to make it not come down to a couple shots at the end of the game, because that's where they've lost a bunch this season. They're going to be a problem in the Big 12 next season for sure, which is not a problem for Texas. But for the Big 12, I think Cincinnati is close to finding itself and close to getting there. They may just be a player or two away. But going into the Big 12, they look like to make this conference even better. They're another one of those teams that they've brought in, that the Big 12 is going to be a really good basketball conference, even with Texas and OU leaving. That is going to be a really, really good basketball conference going forward. Over in the NBA, we saw a controversial win for the Rockets, 105-103 over the Knicks. A lot of controversy that the Rockets are up 4 points with a couple minutes or like a minute left or so. And Jalen Brunson turns it on, gets 2 quick shots, ties the game up. Aaron Holiday throws up a 3 at the buzzer off a rebound, and they call Jalen Brunson for bumping him while after the shot is off. And they give them 3 free throws. That closes the game, and the Rockets win. After the game, the officials basically said, well, when we reviewed it, that wasn't the right call, and we shouldn't have called it. So the Knicks are clearly furious about it. There is some major overreaction that it's the worst call ever in all these things, and it's a regular season game in the NBA, so I won't put it into the worst calls ever. It wasn't a good call. They missed the call. They shouldn't have called it, and it goes to a bigger problem in the NBA that I'm seeing more, and I see it in college basketball more now. Refs have to swallow whistles. They used to swallow whistles, and I think now that social media has gotten so on to teams and on to refs where they're showing you the split second of every play and you know, well, you missed that foul, and clearly that's a call, and that needs to be a foul. Swallow your refs. Swallow your whistles, refs. Just swallow your whistles. That's the way it's always been. You know, you win it on the court, you know, and you were told, you know, everyone gets told when you're playing, don't let the refs decide the game. You go out there and finish. Now, if it's a terrible foul and someone's really bumping them and really, you know, the shot is super altered, then maybe you have to call it. But, I mean, there's been tons and tons of games where it comes down to it at the end, and you're basically throwing a guy in the paint and hoping to get a foul call. And that's just not great basketball. It's not what you want to see. And calling a foul when it's a 1-point game with 0.3 seconds left, unless it's a really big foul, it's just always kind of the wrong call, because you're deciding the game with your officiating, because you may not call that in the first 3 minutes, and you're going to call it at the end because it's so over-scrutinized. You just have to swallow those whistles for the most part. There's a few times where you can make the call. As a sports fan, I've been on the bad side of this and the positive side. As a player, I've been on the positive side and the bad side of it. It's infuriating for the time you're in it, but it's a much easier way to get over. It's way easier to get over a no call than it is a questionable call at the end where they gave them 2 free throws to win the game. I'd rather be on the other side of it. I'd always rather be the one to say, well, we should have won it somewhere else, and you can't expect that whistle, than the one to say, well, how do you call that and not call, you know, how are we not at 50 free throws each when you're calling that, you know, if you're going to call that in the last play? That's all I can say there. But the Rockets were, you know, even with the call, we can say the Rockets hanging with the Knicks is a good sign for the Rockets. They've been having some issues with Van Vliet, has been on the bench. They've been having issues with turnovers. They shored that up. Aaron Holiday played a few more minutes as a backup point guard and had the ball a little bit more in clutch time, which helped out with those turnovers a little bit. It shows you the Rockets are at lack of depth, but that's what, for all these young teams, you just kind of have that lack of depth is going to be an issue. Aaron Holiday does put up 18 points in the game as well, and I thought it was another decent game for Amin Thompson. Your rookie that you come in, Jabari Smith's doing okay. Jalen Green's still on that level. He didn't have a great shooting night, played okay, but Amin Thompson gets 8 points, 13 rebounds. He hasn't been the most skilled player in the NBA so far, him and his brother, but they're showing a ton of effort when they're getting out there. And that's what you can ask for from a rookie, especially on a young team with guys that may not always be the most effort guys, like not a shot at Jalen Green, but he is a guy that is more finesse than necessarily someone who's going to be diving for every loose ball and going up and trying to get every rebound. So to have an Amin Thompson to offset that is how you build a good roster. So he's showing that if you can help, you can start to build that offensive end. That's the easiest thing to help teach somebody, is get them a little bit more comfortable on the offensive end. It's really hard to teach effort. It's really hard to teach that rebounding. It's really hard to teach defense to guys who don't want to do it. So a good sign for the Rockets to be in that game and Amin Thompson have a decent game in there as well. Mavericks take care of business against the Wizards, 112-104. Doncic, of course, again, 26 points, 11 rebounds, 15 assists. Does a great job, but the guy they got from the Wizards, returning to the Wizards after being traded, Daniel Gafford, has a game for himself as well. 16 points, 17 rebounds for Gafford, taking a part of what the Mavs wanted him to be, defensively, playing some defense and getting rebounds, getting the hustle plays. He does well there. P.J. Washington, not as great in his debut as a starter. Both P.J. Washington and Gafford were starters in this game as well. Both of them came in. This is what the lineup is hopefully looking forward. Josh Green is starting as well. We'll see if he stays in there, but I think they want Gafford and Washington to start and Lively to come in off the bench and show some energy. But we'll see. Lively has been out as well. If they want to have him back in, he just hasn't been able to play the rim protection I think they want. But I think between Gafford and Lively, they feel they can have a little bit better guys being, having a little bit more legs in the fourth quarter. And the rebounding for Gafford showed up there. P.J. Washington goes 4 for 11, 0 from 5 for 3. He's got to find himself there, but you're not writing anything off on those two trades. Still think the Mavs needed to do something at the deadline. And, we seen Gafford seems to be paying off now. Now we know his big issue in Washington has been consistency, so can he keep that going? P.J. Washington as well, if he can go pick it up, help this team out. But it's nice to see them get a win with Doncic only scoring 26, even though he still guts a triple-double. He did not have to do everything, which is what the core has been, and the problem has been with the Mavs is Doncic has to do everything for them to get a win. He still does a lot, but some help out there from Gafford in that game for sure. And the Spurs get a good road win, the first road win of the rodeo road trip this season, 122-99 over the Raptors. Devin Vassell is a good game. He has to for the Spurs to be able to compete, but the story was Victor Wembanyama getting a triple-double of 27 points, 14 rebounds, and 10 blocks. He adds 5 assists to that as well. One of the only players to have a stat line like that. I believe the only person to have it like that with him is Akeem Olajuwon, and if you take the numbers down to the 5s, then that also means that David Robinson is in that category of guys who have had those types of games, but elite company for that. And I saw this tweet earlier as well, which is an interesting point on what Victor Wembanyama really brings to the game and why it's such an anomaly to have him. Andrew Lopez at _Andrew_Lopez says, in last night's triple-double, Wembanyama recorded his 75th three-pointer, 150th assist, and 150th block of the season. He's the first player in NBA history who'd have 75 threes, 150 assists, and 150 blocks in the same season, and it took him 48 games, and even more mentioning a lot of those with minutes restrictions because of his ankle injuries. That is a amazing feat that you're seeing, and it's not so much that you're kind of picking and choosing the stats, as that there's never been a center with the size and defensive ability that he has to be able to block shots, to be able to alter the defensive game at the level he does, that is also a superior passer and has the offensive ability and IQ to be able to find the players, be able to keep the ball and get the ball where it needs to be for assists, get the ball where it needs to be to continue to, get guys open and find guys on a team and find guys cutting and pull himself out, and then bring in the fact that he can shoot the three-pointer, and that shot's been getting better as the season goes on, of him getting more and more comfortable with that three-point shot in the NBA, and that's been going up, which allows for more assists because guys are cutting, and if Victor Wembanyama is pulling out their tallest guy and their rim protector out to the three-point line, they're getting easier baskets to the paint. It has definitely been something that we are seeing just the beginnings of a very unique player who can do a lot of things, but his defensive presence with those block shots and how he can block shots without having to jump very high, and that allows him to get 2 or 3 blocks on a possession, because a guy normally, if you get your shot blocked, you kind of can go back up, and that guy's either coming back down or he's unable to get back up for the shot, and Wembanyama's hands are just up. It's a different type of game where guys are going to get more used to it, and there'll be different ways to go against it in offense, but if you're having a game plan for an offensive game plan against a Victor Wembanyama every single time out, it just seems like it's going to get more and more painful for other teams as he continues to get better. But, just another one of those pieces to build the case for him to be Rookie of the Year and a possible case for Defensive Player of the Year as well as he keeps going. It looks like those are both things that if he stays healthy and if he continues to play at this level, he could get both of those pieces and looking good for the Spurs, that sense of building. and they're trying to find. I think the Spurs are finding more and more what works around Victor Wembanyama and gives them a clearer path in the draft and free agency, in trades, what they need to do to build this team going into next season. And they could take a big leap next season, kind of knowing more of what they need to have built around him, where I don't know if they had the best ideas going into it because no one has seen. As we just said, those stats I just read off for you, that's never happened, and he did in 48 games. You don't know how to build around a guy that you don't know what he's going to be able to do. And so they just didn't know this season. They wanted to play it safe and not get pot committed. You know, people are mad they didn't go out and get a point guard, but do you really want, Fred VanVleet, a high-paid contract for him for 4 years if he doesn't work out? And that wasn't the right case. So they waited a season to figure out what to do with it, and they could take a big step. It's not going to be hard to take a big step because they're not doing very well this season. They could take a big step next season. The Rockets are in a good place. The Mavs are in that middle ground where we're going to see what P.J. Washington and Gafford continue to do in that trade. But all three Texas teams looking like in the next few years it could get competitive, and those rivalries could come back out again. If you want to watch some NBA tonight, a couple games on TNT for you to check out. The Thunder are at Magic. This is a fun future of the NBA. Smaller market teams that have they've taken a lot of draft picks recently. There's a lot of talent on both of these teams. OKC's a little bit ahead. They have they're fifth in the NBA in scoring offense and third in field goal defense. They're just ahead of a Magic team that has trouble scoring at points. We'll see if Franz Wagner is going to be able to get out there and score some points. When he plays well offensively, that team goes a lot better. Paolo Banchero has been pretty good all season as well. And then you also be able to see the Kings and Suns, which should be a shootout. They're both offensive teams, two of the best offensive teams in the NBA. Kings and Suns. That will be a fun one tonight on TNT as well. Let's get to the big fat poll today so we can get to the text line. What do you say about that?
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day today. 512-447-3776 is the text line. We'll get into the NBA. There's some talk now because we're past the Super Bowl. It's draft time in the NFL, and the big talk now is in between now and the draft. Will the Bears keep the number one pick? Who will trade around? Who wants those top 1, 2, 3 quarterbacks in the draft? Who wants to get up and get a Marvin Harrison Jr.? Who needs an offensive lineman up there? But the question is for you today. And it's simple because it could be the answer of who's already there, or you could say someone else is going to go up and get it. But who will be the number one pick? Who will be picking number one in the draft? Who will pick number one? Not the number one pick, but who will pick number one in the draft? Which team will have the number one pick going into the draft? Do the Bears keep it? Do the Bears say, all right, we're going to move Justin Fields? There's interest in Justin Fields that the Falcons are basically saying we'll take the number one pick, or if Justin Fields, we just need a quarterback, and you guys are now at the place to have two, so we want one of them. Is there, the Steelers, do the Steelers call up and say, we don't know what we're doing at quarterback? We'll gladly take Justin Fields because we feel the price is lower than the number one pick, and you can keep Caleb Williams or Drake May or whoever you want? Is there another team that's going to, are the Vikings going to enter that conversation? Do the Commanders try and trade up one to get their guy because they got Cliff Kingsbury now, and they say we want to get Caleb Williams? Do they trade up to number one, and the Bears get to decide again at number two? Who's going to have who will pick number one in the draft? Who will have the number one pick in the NFL draft as we get there? Let me know on the text line, 512-447-3776. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back, start getting to the text line, and get to a little hook 'em up replay here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. Keeping it rolling. Text lines open 512-447-3776. Pick that poll of the day. Who will pick number one in the NFL draft? See some good questions on there you want to talk about. We can get into those as well. We'll get into those in just a minute as well. I appreciate you guys texting in. Keep them coming. 512-447-3776. We'll keep the show rolling right along. I want to get to a hook 'em up replay here in a second as well. I do want to tell you about one of the great contests we have over at hornfm.com. The Carbach Round Rock Classic is back at the Dell Diamond at the Horn. Has your tickets February 23rd through the 25th. Some of the best college baseball outside of Omaha. The round robin tournament features Kentucky, Texas State, Washington State, and Kansas. So you can register now on the contest page at hornfm.com to win a pair of 3-day passes to the game out at the Dell Diamond. It is a great time to enjoy some college baseball and get into the baseball mood because we're getting closer and closer. So check out the hornfm.com contest page for all the info on the event and your chance to win 3-day passes. Go ahead and check that out. All right, let's get to so hook 'em up replay for you guys here on the Sports Complex. And this morning they were talking a little bit about the Super Bowl a little bit more and the Chiefs defense, which again put up really, really good numbers. And as much as we saw Christian McCaffrey put up 160 against them, combined yardage, Deebo Samuel was pretty much held in check, and George Kittle was pretty much held in check. And they did their job in overtime to make sure that Patrick Mahomes didn't have to go for 2, which they kept talking about. And I'll talk a little bit more about in the 5 o'clock. But I want to play a little hook 'em up replay here from the guys E and Rod B this morning. It's a hook 'em up replay on the Sports Complex.
All right, let's break down this Kansas City defense because on the rewatch, I'm even more impressed with Steve Spagnuolo. And we don't talk about this enough either. I know we talked about Spags a lot, E and I did, prior to this matchup because we were giving him his flowers and he deserves it. But we talk about Andy Reid being the best head coach, play calling head coach in the league. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. Brett Beach, best GM in the league. We've given him his props. Is there a better DC than Spagnuolo?
I don't think so.
So they got the best DC too? Okay.
Resume would tell you it's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Steve Spagnuolo is a defensive coordinator.
I agree with you, especially now that Belichick's out of the game. I mean, he's not coaching more. I don't know if there's a better – you might argue that's not a better defensive coordinator in the game. You could say maybe Mike McDonald from what he did, but he hasn't done as long as Spags. Yeah, I mean, he's done a really good job in the two years he's been defensive coordinator, but Spags has been doing this thing since 2008, 2007. Talk about him going on, 15, years, 2 decades of him being a really elite defensive mind. So let's talk about the defensive game plan for the Kansas City Chiefs versus San Fran. And you guys have heard me say this over and over again. You want to win a big game, you better break tendency. Because everybody's studying your patterns, your trends, your habits for that, especially that 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, the biggest game, but any big game. Teams are keying on the patterns. They're keying on trends. All right, what are your habits? What do you do? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? And they're going to build game plans around that. All right, they're going to build game plans to take away your strength. They're going to build game plans based on what they do well and what to avoid, right? What to avoid and what do you want to try to emphasize. And once again, Steve Spagnuolo, giving him credit, he broke tendency at the perfect time. So first of all, the Kansas City Chiefs usually play, they blitz a lot. We know that's part of Spags' DNA. Spags will blitz you. We talked about that even before the game. But he usually will play more zone behind his blitzes than man. He's usually pretty split, but if you want to look at it overall, he's going to be more zone behind those blitzes than man coverage. That was not the case in this matchup versus San Fran. I think San Fran probably expected him to play a lot of zone behind those blitzes and those exotic pressure packages. He did not. That was the first tendency breaker. First of all, if you go look at man coverage rates, let's look at man coverage rates versus teams who played San Fran. The highest man coverage rate for a team that played San Fran was from week 6. It was Cleveland. All right. Cleveland played man coverage against the 49ers in that game 71% of the time. And if you go look at a lot of these coverage rates and a lot of the blitz rates, it looks like his game plan was inspired by Jim Schwartz's game plan in week 6 when Cleveland, at the time they were the best defense in the league, when Cleveland played San Fran. And they beat them. He talks about how he watched that game. And Jim Schwartz, he has the personnel to do it because he has some of the best defensive players in the league, including Myles Garrett. But he was able to throw a lot of exotic pressure looks at Brock Purdy, but also he took away the easy completions for Brock Purdy. And zone coverage gives you easy completions, right? Quick routes, hot routes, the quick out, the quick slant, all those kind of easy throws for a quarterback to get him in a rhythm, to get him in a groove, to keep them confident, all right? And you can tell Spags never wanted Brock Purdy to get into a rhythm, never wanted him to get into a groove, never wanted him to feel confident. Man coverage forces that quarterback to be accurate. Now he didn't have to process as much because man coverage is easier for a quarterback to identify. But ball placement is the big challenge for a quarterback when you're facing coverage as sticky as Kansas City Chiefs was going to play. So if you look at man coverage rates, Cleveland highest man coverage rate versus highest man coverage rate versus San Fran this year, 71%. That was from week 6. The second in the Super Bowl, Spags, 64% man coverage rate. Second highest man coverage rate against San Fran all season long. If you go look at lowest zone rates, well, that also tracks, right? It's the second lowest amount of zone coverage that Brock Purdy had seen the entire season. Second most man he's seen all season. And yes, only the week 6 matchup versus Cleveland had a lower zone rate and a higher percentage of man coverage rates. Let's go look at, and it was different types of man. That's the beauty of it. So you can play man, but if it's the same kind of man every time, it's man single high or 2-man under. You can play 0-man. You can play a lot. There are like 4 or 5 different types of man coverage you can play. All right, a bunch of different. You can bracket man, lots of different man coverage you can play. And he threw all of them, all the different types of man coverage you can throw at Brock Purdy to force him to always have to focus on ball placement with sticky coverage. If you look at 2-man percentage, 2-man is basically when you play 2 high shell, 2 deep safeties, and you're still playing man coverage underneath it. Usually that means you're playing man under. Man under means I undercut every route. I'm gonna jump every route. Because why not? Because I got 2 deep safeties over the top. So my deep ball is defended already. The deep routes are already defended. I need to take away the underneath stuff. If you go look at it, it was the 3rd highest 2-man percentage rate that the 49ers had seen all season long. So 3rd most. Only Pittsburgh in week 1 and Tampa Bay in week 11 played more 2-man coverage, 2-man under than the Kansas City Chiefs did. So really high rate of 2-man under. If you look at just cover one, so we have a single safety in the middle of the field. So you got a single deep safety in the middle of the field, but you're playing man coverage everywhere else. And that usually means leverage is going to be your friend, right? You want to use the sideline. You want to play inside leverage. If you go look at highest rates of cover 1 that San Francisco's offense had to face, week 6 was the highest at 61% in Cleveland. Week 11 against Tampa Bay was at 41.9%. And then right behind that, 3rd highest cover 1 rate that the 49ers had seen all season long. So they play a lot of cover 1. They play a lot of 2-man under. But here is probably the biggest key, the biggest tendency breaker of all, was that San Francisco saw the 2nd highest rate of cover 0. Now, cover 0 is the riskiest coverage you can play. There ain't no riskier coverage in football than cover 0 because you got no help anywhere. There's no help inside. There's no help outside. There's no help over the top. You get beat, you're beat. That's usually when you get big, chunky, you can't even trip and fall. You trip and fall, your guy's going to be running wide open. It is just you, mano a mano. All right, and no help at all. And this is a risky coverage, but like I just gave you all the reasons why it could just be a simple, a guy, their feet get caught up, you slip and fall, guy just beats you really badly. That can end up being a touchdown or explosive play. So you're walking the line, all right, between defensive disaster and defensive delight. And nobody walks it better than Spags. So if you look at 0 coverage rates, the highest 0 coverage versus the 49ers, highest rate of 0 coverage versus the 49ers was actually in it was Super Bowl. The highest, coverage rate of 0 coverage came in the Super Bowl. It was a 21.4%. 0 coverage rate, which was the highest that the 49ers had seen all season long. In week 6, Cleveland was at 9.7%. Week 13, Philly was at 13.3%. Week 3, the Giants against San Fran, they were at close to 18% zero coverage rates. So it looks like Spags was inspired by watching those performances, and that he decided that his DBs, he had a lot of trust in his DBs, and you got to have almost a absurd, preposterous amount of confidence in your DBs to play that much zero coverage. And it worked, because with zero coverage, it makes the job of the quarterback even tougher, because he knows he doesn't have time. Because every defender that's not in coverage is coming. They're coming. And that's why his blitz rate was so high. Kansas City blitzed on 27 of their snaps. They played man coverage behind 23 of those snaps. So you're talking about the fourth highest blitz rate under Spags as a DC. So we fourth highest blitz rate he's had since he's been calling plays there with Kansas City. And he played mostly man coverage behind him. Kansas City generated a season high 9 unblocked pressures in the Super Bowl. They hadn't had that many unblocked pressures all season long. All right. And they were all on cover 1 blitzes. All on cover 1 blitzes. And Purdy actually wasn't terrible. He was 12 and 19 versus the blitz, 131 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 sack. But they kept him guessing. He had no idea where the pressure was coming from. And guys, even though he didn't get sacked or didn't throw an interception, he got 1 sack during that blitz. But even though he didn't have a lot of bad negative plays, he missed so many open receivers, and he was off on at least 2 or 3 money down throws because of the pressure and because of the exotic blitz scheme of Spagnuolo. So you got to give Spagnuolo a lot of credit. That was a hell of a game plan. It was one of the best game plans I've seen all season long, and he broke tendency at the right time. He took away anything easy for Brock Purdy and made Brock Purdy have to beat them, and he couldn't.
No. It's one of those things. If you know it's coming, you have a chance to beat it. But it was out of nowhere, right? It was totally a surprise to what they probably expected, and that's really what the game is about, right? You know, Kyle Shanahan built a game plan for what he thought he was going to see for Brock Purdy, and Steve Spagnuolo gave him something totally different. Reminds you of a couple of years ago when Bill Belichick did it to Sean McVay, right? And Sean McVay had to admit, I got outcoached, man. I got whipped today by Bill Belichick. Spagnuolo, I think, did it to the Niners in that case. And 3 for 12 on third down. And all of those big money downs, it was somebody in his face making things happen. Good stuff right there with Rod Babers and the rant. That is why the Kansas City Chiefs have won another Super Bowl. Their defense has become elite, and we've talked about that all year, just how sticky they are in the back end. And to your point of the confidence, look, Rod, the last thing you want to do as a player is get toasted on a big play in the Super Bowl. Right? And he kept putting his DBs in that position that, man, if I, as you said, stumble, this is 6 points, and I'm going to be looking like a clown in front of 200 million people.
Yeah, got me running wide open. Like, what happened with that coverage? But it never really happened.
No, they didn't, and that gives you how well coached they are, how confident they were, because they were really great.
Good stuff there. Hook them up with E and Rod B. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will get into the text line 512-447-3776. The big fat poll today. Who will be picking number 1 in the NFL draft? Do the Bears keep it? Do they trade it? Who trades up to get it? Let us know on the text line. Who will pick number 1 in the NFL draft? Let us know on the text line, 512-447-3776. We'll get to that when we come back here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 101.9, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex on a Tuesday afternoon. Hope you're all having a good Tuesday. We're recovered now from the end of football in the Super Bowl and an overtime game, and a lot of fun was had watching that game. I hope everybody's back. I'm on board that Monday should be a national holiday, but Tuesday we got to get back to it and start talking about the draft and everything else. And, it's basketball season. I know not everyone is as big a basketball fan as I am, but you can get into it. You can enjoy it. Man Chan on the text line. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. Says the states involved in the college football playoff and March Madness championship to declare a state holiday the next day. They should. The problem is those need to move to Sundays too. I know that the Monday and they think it's the big, move that to a Sunday too, and we can all enjoy watching it without having to work all day and then go to the game, and then the next day we have to work too. It takes away some of the enjoyment of it. Let us have it to where we can cook and we can get all the stuff and be mentally ready for it. And then that Monday's the holiday. I'm with you, Chan. I'm all for more holidays, though. I think that's what they say about my generation, is that we don't work hard enough. I mean, I'm here, but I'm all for more holidays. Believe me, I'm all for more holidays. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. Big fat poll today. Who will be picking number one? Will the Bears keep the number one pick in the draft, or do they move on Justin Fields, or do they keep Justin Fields and trade down in that pick? That is a question. Who goes up to get it if that's the case? We know the Vikings and the Commanders and the Raiders and the Steelers may be interested. There's a lot of teams. The Falcons are interested. There's a lot of teams that may be interested in it. Do they go for that pick? Do they move it? Do they keep the pick, or do they move it down? They're also saying it takes a historic haul to go get Caleb Williams, which may be more what they're trying to sell and not what's the truth, but we'll see. Text line, we get someone says Cowboys and Mike Zimmer. I believe this is when I say we will talk about it, and I will talk about some of the Cowboys and Mike Zimmer playing into that in the 5 o'clock. I have something that we're going to do about that, so we'll get to that. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but I want to talk a little bit more about it because we had a texter yesterday that said I had a lot of Cowboys hate. So I'll get into why I don't have Cowboys hate, but what my viewpoint is of what they need to do and why they're not doing it. And I'd like to see him try. But I got a text yesterday saying I had Cowboys hate, which I don't. But I thought about that. So I have something to say about that in the 5 o'clock when we talk some football. We'll get there. Texter says Trae Young to the Spurs. I know someone talked about that yesterday or the day before. Someone texted in about Trae Young to the Spurs. I don't see the fit as well as some other people do. I think statistically the fit makes sense. But again, in the roster management of the Spurs, you kept Devin Vassell. He's playing well right now. He's getting more and more used to playing with Victor Wembanyama. They're playing off of each other better and better. And I don't think Vassell and Trae Young play together. I don't think they work well together. I think that's more in the same sense of when they thought DeJounte Murray would play well with them. I just don't think Trae Young is a guy that necessarily you build it. Like, he's a very hard guy to build a team around and then tell him, go ahead and take 35 shots in a game. We don't care, because that's what you're going to do because you think every shot's a good shot, even though they're not. He's really good. He does a lot of things well. But I think, when you also look at Victor Wembanyama, his usage rate is really, really high, highest ever for a rookie. And then if you talk to about guys like Luka Doncic and a guy like Trae Young, you have to kind of put guys around them that fit. I don't know if you put two guys with really high usage rates next to each other, if that automatically gets you the win. In my book, it doesn't. I think there's other pieces you want to get. Also, I'd rather go out and try and find the harder pieces to find, which are 6'9" ring defenders and guys who can play really good defense on the perimeter and on the edge. And a point guard like Trey Jones you can keep. I think Trey Jones may not be the next guy, but a point guard who can play, that's a long point guard, can play really good defense against a 1 or a 2, and then a wing that can be a 3-and-D guy. Those are the pieces. And you have to figure out what you're going to do with Jeremy Sohan, because he does have good games, and then he's inconsistent, but he's also really young, and those will happen in those young games. I'm not sold on him yet of really wanting to be a hard-nosed, I'm a basketball player, or if he wants to be a star. And I don't know if those two can coexist, because I don't think he has natural star talent of that he's going to be the next big star in the league. So then you get into that, can he be Draymond and tempered enough on the court that it's not a problem? Or is he Draymond where he's going to cause problems and cost you games and get suspended because he has to be in the spotlight? That's the question you ask of him right now. It's too young to tell. But if the Spurs know better on the inside what they're looking for and what they want to get, because if you get Defensive Player of the Year, Jeremy Sohan, then great. But if you get, diving into the crowd and then eating popcorn and I'll smile at the camera, you're like, man, I don't need smile at the camera guy. I need a consistent, 12 points and a consistent 8 to 10 rebound. That's what I need from you. And I need consistent defense against guys who want to bump against you instead of backing down and you play decent perimeter, but not on guys that want to bump with you because you don't want to bump. That's what I need more than that. Next texter says, so Michael Jordan's son and Scottie Pippen's ex-wife finally broke up all these years and Jordan still can't get a ring without Pippen. I like it. I like the joke. It's a solid line. I think we can figure out why they broke up is the same reason I did not know this news is once they were out of the news cycle and maybe it's just because I don't work with Rod anymore. And Rod was the one who kept me up to date with these kind of things. And I don't necessarily keep up myself with the celebrity drama too much. I'm not my area I go too far into. The Rye guy from New Mexico says, as a Steelers fan, I would love to see them either trade for Justin Fields or trade for the number 1 spot. I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan, but he's definitely better than anything we have currently. And I think that's really I think if you're in the Steelers, I think Justin Fields would be an interesting pickup because it's a little bit less. They also could do the thing of trying to trade into that second spot, and we may go into it a little bit. The third spot may be open as well, but Drake May might also fit what they want to do. And so they may not need to be fully on Caleb Williams to say, well, we're fine with getting Drake May. That's we think he'd be just fine in the Steelers organization. They may like that, but they may like somebody a little bit later in the draft as well for the Steelers. But I do think they have to make a decision at the quarterback position, and I don't know if you can go out and try and get Kirk Cousins. There also is a different, they could look at Russell Wilson. I don't know if his Steelers fans want to think that either, but Russell Wilson is a guy who may be a veteran enough that you put him with the Mike Tomlin that's a little bit more hard-nosed and can kind of control what he does a little bit better, and you put him into that system, maybe he can figure out in the Steelers culture a little bit better to go than when he went to the Broncos and left a very set culture of Pete Carroll and went to the Broncos where they were trying to find themselves a little bit more and didn't know what they were doing. He came in, without the coach he needed and everything else, and it was just kind of an utter failure. Is that a place where Russell Wilson could end up, where you're waiting another year to figure out if you're done with Kenny Pickett experiment completely, or if he just needs a little bit more time to get there? If you're done with the Mason Rudolph experiment, they may go and just try and grab a Russell Wilson if he's available and not that expensive. That's another option the Steelers could go with. My man Nate says number 1 has to be Chicago. While Lakefield, he isn't a good QB. He's all right. I think that they should kind of move off it and take the number 1 quarterback. Unless you get a really good haul from the Commanders. I think if you get a really good haul from the Commanders, you move down to 2, and I'm fine with you still moving on, and you can still move on from Justin Fields and still get a Drake May, and I don't know if that's the worst thing in the world either for what you want to do, and you may be able to get a historic haul. I think I think they'd like to have that option too, but I don't know if that'll be available for them. And I can't make jokes. Rita Ballou and Bob Ballou they're not married. You know that. Those are 2 different Balloos. 2 different Balloos completely, Nate. Texas says, hey, thank you for playing Rod Babers stuff in the morning so often. I can't always listen to them in the morning, and Rod talk about some of the best stuff. Yes, I always love listening to Rod, and that's one of the reasons I love playing him and Aaron on the show here. It's we like giving them some shout outs and what they do. They do 5 hours a day. There's always a lot of great content. You can listen to it on 6 to 11, but not everybody gets to it, and so we play some here in the afternoon. It's just me in here, so we give them a little bit of time to shine as well. To keep the show a little bit more rounded, a few different viewpoints, and we love to have your viewpoints as well on the text line. We'll get to one more text here, and then we'll take a quick break. Text says, Hawks fan here, Trey and Wemby would be a great pair in my opinion. Trey's the best lob passer in the league and resolve a lot of the Spurs' spacing issues. But I mean, where is he? Whose job is he taking? Is my question. Because if you're saying he's taking Vassell's, that doesn't help. And again, he's a lob passer. But that's not, I think that paying a guy a super max contract because he's a good lob passer might not be the best. But I think there's a lot of things he does that would go well. I think there's also things that would be a negative of it, where if you can get someone who can do some of the things he does well without having to take 30 shots a game, 25 to 30 shots a game, and be a bulk scorer, I think that would work out a lot better. And that's what I'm saying is I don't think that Trae Young's a bad player. I just think that Trae Young is a guy that you kind of have to revolve your team around. I don't know if he would work as, hey, we need you to be a distant number 2. I don't know if he falls in that Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker role. And maybe he could. Maybe he could transform his game. I just don't see him being the guy to say, no, sure, I'll take second fiddle at this point in my career. I think he thinks he can still win MVP, and he ain't winning MVP if he's playing with Wemby, at least not on a Spurs roster that wants to win anything. That's just the case it is, in my viewpoint. Appreciate the text, though. Keep them coming in. Big fat poll of the day. Who will have the number 1 pick in the draft? Which team will get it? Will it be the Bears or will someone else trade up for it? Let me know. 512-447-3776. When we come back, little college football news, a little Texas news, something that's good for Texas as well in there. And we'll get into a little bit more talk. And I'll talk about the Cowboys and Mike Zimmer. Just something I was thinking about one of our texters yesterday, because I do think about you guys. We'll get to that when we come back here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 2 of the Sports Complex here on the Horn. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. We're asking the Big Fat Poll today, who will be picking number 1 in the upcoming NFL draft? Will the Bears keep it? Will they move it? Let us know on the text line, 512-447-3776. Anything else you want to talk about? We'll get to that. We'll get into a little Texas football, a little college football that helps out the Longhorns, I believe. We'll talk a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys officially making Mike Zimmer their defensive coordinator, what it could mean for the Cowboys, and just a little bit of Cowboys talk. Maybe we'll get a little bit more into the draft. We're trying to get in all those pieces here in the 5 o'clock hour. And, of course, you guys drive the show. I just try to keep it on the rails. So whatever you want to talk about, throw it in there on the text line, and we will get to it, whether it's basketball, football. I don't know much soccer. We can try and talk some baseball. We're getting closer and closer to baseball. I haven't done too much research into it, but I can get you what I know. We'll get into that as we get closer to that season. Then we will have to move. Have to be paying closer attention, trying to keep track of everything. Sometimes you have to step away. But let's talk some Longhorns first and get into the news that came out today. The combine invites were sent out today, and the Longhorns have 11 players going to the combine. That is good news for Texas. It's not only good news because it means that your program is looking better and getting in the shape. It is great news for recruits and recruiting when you are showing them that you are putting players, getting them close to that next step, and you are now developing the talent enough that these guys are going to the combine, whereas some previous years you had talent and talent that could go be undrafted free agents. This tells you that these players and these talents are being looked at a much higher level, that the NFL scouts and the NFL organizations want to look at them. They have 11 players: Jonathan Brooks, Keelan Robinson, Adonai Mitchell, Jordan Whittington, Xavier Worthy, Jatavion Sanders, Christian Jones, Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, Jalen Ford, and Ryan Watts, all getting invites to the combine. No big surprises in that one. Keelan Robinson may have been on edge, but with his athletic ability, definitely somebody that you'd like to see at the combine. So good to see all of those guys getting their invites to the combine. And in the reality, when you look at it, is 11 a good number? That puts them tied with Georgia at 4th most invites. Michigan with 18, also pretty good news for Texas, as they play Michigan early in the season next year, and they are going to have a lot of new players because 18 players from that team that are NFL talent level or close to it are going to be at the combine. Washington had 13 going. Again, a team you played that was just a really good team this season. Florida State has 12, and Georgia tied with them 11. Alabama sending 10. Penn State sending 10 as well. But that's a good number for Texas. That's where you want to get. It could go up next year. You know, we'll see who goes early. It's going to be an interesting year. The transfer portal keeps that number higher than it used to be on average now, because, you know, it's just hard to consistently stock that amount of talent other than Georgia's and Alabama's that could do it. Texas trying to get in that level, that adding in the transfer portal could continue to keep putting double-digit people into the scouting combine. The NFL scouting combine will be a big piece for their future going forward. So really good news there, and congrats to all of those guys getting to go to the NFL combine. Another piece of NFL news that was coming out today is that the in-helmet communication is past another barrier and getting closer and closer to becoming a reality. It's something that we know Sark mentioned in one of his press conferences last season was, please, everyone write about how this should be done. When we talk about sign stealing and everything that comes out about, you know, how they have to have this and how much time goes into training new signals and new signs because everyone's trying to steal them all the time, and there's a certain part of it that's gamesmanship that's going to be there, and there's a certain part of it that is just, a team going above and beyond what the rules should say for them to be able to do. It shouldn't be an issue in 2024, especially not as we get closer and closer to a major program system and then Division II and smaller Division I teams, that if you can't afford it, that's fine, but you can't be handicapping the football that is so popular in this country and is raking in so much money. Why handicap it? I think they're starting to realize that you can't be doing that, and it's a big piece. And in all honesty, for a team like Texas, this is a really good thing because, you know, even if it gets past this season, that's great. That's amazing if it gets past this season because it will help Sark talk to Quinn Ewers, and they have a great relationship and help him. And we have to see what the rules are of how much, are they allowed to keep talking to them to help them with audibles? Are they allowed to keep talking once the huddle breaks, or how many seconds on the play clock, or is communication still allowed to be done between coaches? So you could still see what Bill Belichick had done to Sean McVay and wait till the play clock switches and they switch formations and switch what they're showing. But I think you will see to a point that it will help out a team that has play callers like Steve Sarkisian, who is a really good, mind on the field of what he wants to see and can help Quinn, or next season help Arch, the following season, I should say, help Arch Manning, help them see more as it goes throughout the game, help them read the defenses in game and get those plays in and what they really want to see played. And, it could be a big help for a Texas team and a coaching staff like Sark's, and what he could do with that a little bit more time with your quarterback could be a big piece for him as they continue to build this team. But that is really good news. It's good news for the game because you can get rid of the controversies of stealing signals, because they will no longer be able to – the signals will not be given out on the sideline anymore. It'll be straight into the helmet. I'm sure there will be conspiracy theories about that as well, but it'll be big for that. But also a big piece for Texas to be able to kind of get in and work on some other issues. Like just the fact that you have to learn new signals every week and waste that time versus what you should be doing as a football team. It's been long overdue. So hopefully it'll get passed by this season, if not by next, and be good luck for the Texas football team. All right, text line's open. 512-447-3776 is the text line. Whatever you guys want to talk about, we'll talk about it. And it brings me to something that was asked about earlier today about the Cowboys and bringing in Mike Zimmer, which was made official now. I do believe the Giants have already shot down one of the people that they requested to interview for the new defensive line coach. However, they have now officially brought in Mike Zimmer after that they kind of made a spectacle of it over the weekend, and whatever the reason was that it wasn't official, and Rex Ryan came out and said it's not official and he's going to meet with them again, and all of that was just kind of noise around the Super Bowl that kept the Cowboys relevant. They do think they made the right hire in Mike Zimmer. But we see them make the hire, and it brings it to a point of a texter, because that's why I said text line. We had a texter yesterday who said that they couldn't take my Cowboys hate anymore and the vitriol I spewed about the Cowboys. And I don't know what I said. I have a history of offending people without knowing I'm offending them. I have a history of saying what's on my mind, and sometimes that doesn't go well. And I try to be better at it, but I don't always. But I don't honestly know what I said that was so offensive. I don't know if it was that Jerry was trying to make it a scene so he could be seen over the weekend. I firmly believe that. That's what Jerry does. He's really good at it, and it makes the Cowboys one of the most valuable teams in professional sports because he's really good at that. He is just good at that. It's not a criticism of him as much as it is he does that, and he's really good at it. The criticism is that he says he will do a lot of things, and then he doesn't. He doesn't back it up. And the reality is because Jerry, as much as Jerry Jones is known as, the crazy man, and for years he would do whatever and he'd say whatever, and he's the one who's going to come out in the post-game press conference and have his own, and all of these things that people think he's so unorthodox and so crazy for Jerry Jones. The reality is Jerry Jones likes to play it safe. And he is a guy who has, in the last 10 to 15 seasons, 10, 15 years, he has played it really, really safe with the Cowboys. He knows that he wants to be able to compete. He wants to be in the conversation. He doesn't want to be bad. And so he plays everything safe. Mike McCarthy is a safe hire. He's a good coach. He doesn't rock the boat. He knows what to do with his players, but he's a safe coach. Dak Prescott, probably the best safe quarterback, and I know people think he throws too many picks. He doesn't really. He's a really good in the metrics. What he does as a leader on the field, as a leader off of the field, as a man, Dak Prescott is a safe quarterback. He's one of your safest bets you could have. That Dak Prescott, when you know he's going to show up and he'll do what he can go out there and do. He likes to play it safe. He likes to go with our guys because our guys are playing safe. If we keep the guys we know, then we don't have to take a shot on taking somebody else. And we don't know the unknown commodity. He likes to play it safe by drafting and keeping his draft picks. Well, I don't want to trade away this draft pick, and I know what I can get with our second round pick. But if I trade that and turn it into a third, I don't know who's there, so I'm going to keep that. And it's a safer pick. It's safer. And then he hires Mike Zimmer. And Mike Zimmer, he has a relationship with. Mike Zimmer is one of the better names. He was a name that isn't necessarily on the head coaching spectrum right now, so you're not trying to take over that way. It's a safe hire to hire Mike Zimmer. But this is the fun part for Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer doesn't have to be safe playing for the Dallas Cowboys. He doesn't have to be the coach that is safe. He doesn't have to do this safe thing, because if you want to win, if you want to be a real Super Bowl champion, the critique I give to Jerry Jones is safe doesn't win Super Bowls. It just doesn't. What did the 49ers do in overtime? They took the safe route, and they said, our defense has been running. All right, we're a little beat up. We'll take the safe route. We'll go down. We'll try and score, and we'll do what we do. What did we hear from the Chiefs? Oh, no. We were going to go for 2. It wasn't safe, but we knew that was how we win because we're not safe. What did they do? They traded Tyreek Hill. They've made moves. They let Frank Clark hold out, but they didn't play safe, and they're Super Bowl champs. They go for it on fourth down. They're safe. They're not safe. Now, you can be crazy, and it can cost you. You can be Dan Campbell, and it can cost you because you're not safe. Sure. Dan Campbell's on the other end of that spectrum. You want to be smart. Sure. But you can't always be safe. And Jerry Jones too often is too safe. But Mike Zimmer has not taken the safe route lately. Mike Zimmer could have hung around in the NFL and could have been a coach that waited for the league to come back around to him and his job to come back. But, he went to college. When Deion Sanders called him and said, I have an opportunity, he went there. He took with Deion Sanders and he went to an HBCU to help out, because he thought that I could learn new things, be around different people, learn different approaches. I could be something that's not as safe, and he could come out and be a difference for this Cowboys team because he's not safe. Dan Quinn went too safe too many times. He did what he did too often. Instead of breaking tendency and taking risks, Dan Quinn would get too predictable, trying to blitz and whatever else, and you can say, well, he brought too many blitzes. That's not being safe. If the game plan is, I'm going to call 12 blitzes every game, and you call 12 blitzes, that's still safe to you, because that's what you do every game. What we saw Spags do, what we heard in the 4 o'clock hour from Rob Babers, what did he do? He put his men out on islands. He said, you guys are going to have to play man. We normally play zone behind our exotic blitzes. No, we're going to play man because I trust you. We're not being safe. We're going to go out there and try to be different. We're going to go try to win a Super Bowl. And what did they do? They won a Super Bowl. Sometimes it backfires, but Jerry hasn't wanted to backfire. That's why they're a 12-win team, because he's safe, because he keeps making the right decision. He's safe. He doesn't want to go out and pay a running back a bunch of money or make a trade for a running back. Because what does he know? He knows if he makes that trade and it doesn't work, well, that wasn't safe. He knows if he makes a big trade and it doesn't work and it's not safe, he doesn't win, that's not safe. He doesn't want to lose those. I don't want to lose. And if you don't want to lose, you can't win at the highest level, because you win some, you lose some. The 49ers have now lost 3 Super Bowls. Kyle Shanahan's lost 3 Super Bowls to 3 of the best who ever done it because they weren't safe. Even if you want to look at the Patriots and how safe they were in a lot of things, handing over the franchise to Bill Belichick and him not telling anybody else what he's doing is not necessarily the safest thing to run your franchise. I think the hire of Mike Zimmer can be really good, because I think this can start to break Jerry Jones and start to show Jerry that maybe you don't have to be safe. This is the season. Jerry Jones says he's going all in. Now, I don't buy it. I think it's an excuse for him to pay Dak Prescott a lot of money, which is the safe thing to do. It's probably the smart thing to do. But it's a safe thing to do, to give him the extension, to make sure that he's there long term, to not risk having another quarterback, not risk not being with the quarterback and having the years where you didn't have anybody. It's a safe move. It's probably the smart move. I'd do it if I was Jerry Jones. I'd try and re-sign Dak Prescott. I think he's a good player. I think you need to hire a coach that isn't as safe as Mike McCarthy, but that's me. I think Mike Zimmer can be on the other end. Because if you're Jerry Jones and you understand that you have a very safe coach and a very safe quarterback, you have to then find a way to make your offense not safe. Now, Mike Zimmer has every opportunity to show you that he has a not safe defense, that he will go out there and change up game plans week to week, that he will trust his players, that he will use Micah Parsons and not play it safe with Micah and let him be a D-end and tell him that he can say he's a linebacker and he's a D-end, but we're just going to let him rush and not tell him to play. We're not going to teach him how to play run defense. We're not going to make him be a better player. We're going to put him into where he wants to play because we're afraid we're going to lose him. We're not going to be safe. We're going to go for it. We're going all in. Going all in isn't just a motto. It isn't spending money. Going all in is taking chances. And if Jerry Jones is willing to take more chances this offseason, then I'll believe it. And I want to see Mike Zimmer, when he comes in, start to take chances like he did when he bet on himself and he went down to college to work with Deion Sanders, knowing he would get another shot back in the NFL doing it someday when it was the right job, instead of moving down and trying to find somewhere else, instead of going to a college program that was smaller and being a DC there or being a head coach there where he probably could have gotten a job doing that. He went and tried to improve himself. I want to see them take that mentality of unsafety, of taking risks, not taking it by moderation, not going with what you're supposed to do. Because when I see that this offseason, if they move some draft picks around, if they make a trade for a player, hell, I've been on the record, I'm saying maybe Deron Bland with a super team-friendly contract that's not going to hurt you if you trade him, maybe he's worth some value right now as he was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist. Man, that's not safe to trade away a Defensive Player of the Year finalist that's making $1 million for the next $1 million a year for the next 2 years. That ain't safe. But if you really want to tell me you're going all in, maybe that's what you needed to do. I want to see Jerry not play it safe. And I think Mike Zimmer didn't play it safe when he went to college. I think Mike Zimmer has played safe before. I think he knows more and more in today's NFL that may not be the case. We'll see what he does, who he brings in on his staff, who he puts on his defense. But I think Mike Zimmer can be a first step of taking some steps where the person that Jerry's comfortable with in Mike Zimmer to start to break him out of it and say, Jerry, if you really want to go all in, maybe that's the reason the deal wasn't done. Maybe it wasn't just Jerry going for the pike. Maybe it was Mike Zimmer pushing back and saying, I want control of this on the defense. I want to be able to go and get the guys we want. I want to be able to help you become a Super Bowl champion. That's the hope. That's the Kool-Aid, if you want to drink it, for Cowboys fans, that Mike Zimmer might be the safe pick that turns out to do things not safe. But that's what you got to hope for, because as long as the Cowboys continue to be the safest team in the NFL, they will be a 12-win and early exit from the playoff team. Safe doesn't win you in the playoffs. Safe does not win Super Bowls. And we just seen that with the Chiefs again. They're back-to-back champs by shedding players and not doing things the traditional way. And sure, they got Patrick Mahomes. You know what they did? They took Patrick Mahomes instead of Deshaun Watson because it was not the safe pick. I'm telling you, you have to be somewhat off. Dak Prescott in the 5th round, that's great. That's safe, though. It's 5th round, and it worked out. Tony Romo getting a guy off the backup. That's safe. I need you to be not safe, Cowboys. That's what I want to see when you say all in. And if you don't want to be that and you want to be safe, that's fine. But don't tell me you're going all in and expect me to be critical of it when I don't see it this offseason. So for Cowboys fans who think that I may be being too critical or that I hate the Cowboys, I don't. I hate mediocrity. I hate being safe for the sake of being safe when you tell me you don't want to be safe. I don't like when a business says, well, we wanted to be better, and then they make business moves to not be better. They make business moves to be safe. Well, we have to protect this, so we can't spend that money. No, you have to take that chance. If you really want to make it, you have to take those chances. They haven't taken a chance in several years, a real big swing, and you got to take 5 or 10. Trading for Brandon Cooks was not a huge swing. Trading for Stephon Gilmore was not a huge swing. They were good moves. They were smart moves. And they're starting to build to where you need to be to take those big swings. You're going in the right direction, Jerry. You're going in the right direction, Cowboys. But you have to take that big leap, because otherwise you're about to sign Dak Prescott and then have to go to the question of, why is Mike McCarthy getting fired after another 12-win season? Or are you going to re-sign him and you're just going to be safe and safe and safe? Don't be safe. Make this offseason the all-in, Cowboys. I'm not hating. I want to see them go to that next step. I want to see my Cowboys friends having a good time. And hell, I want to take the whole week off after the Super Bowl next year because the Cowboys are partying or the Texans are partying and we're all having a good time. Because I've got a few Chiefs fans, but I don't think we're partying all week. The Cowboys win, I think we party all week, right? So I want that. I'm rooting for you guys. Let me know what you think on the text line, 512-447-3776. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back, get some more text messages, get some more sound from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rob B right here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back at the sports complex here on the Horn, keeping it rolling on a Tuesday afternoon. Love the text line rolling in. 512-447-3776. Keep them rolling in. Keep them rolling in. We're going to play a Hook 'em Up replay in a minute, but I'll get to some of these texts first. Let's get over to Locksmith Ryan, who says, Patrick, would Jim Rome apologize for offending a listener? Probably not. Stand by your takes. By the way, I'm not standing by my takes. I'm more concerned. It's more an issue of I want to know exactly what I said, because I try and get better about offending people when I'm not trying to. And I don't think I said anything bad, and I don't know why there would be thoughts that I hate the Cowboys, because I don't. But it was more a curiosity to me. I do think about you guys. When you say this is the way you came off, I'd like to know why I came off that way when I don't. But I'm not apologetic, because look, in doing radio and doing anything, you can't appease to everybody. If I say one thing, then half the people think I'm wrong, and if I say the other thing, then the other half think I'm wrong. So you can't always be liked whatever it is. I appreciate you guys jumping on the text line so we can have conversations and we can grow from each other. But I'm not apologizing so much as just trying to even out what I mean. So if you took it the wrong way, hopefully you get a little bit more of what I meant from what I just said. That's what I was saying. Plus, we got 2 months till the draft. We got some things to talk about, right? Texter says, Jerry Jones maximizes mediocrity. He doesn't want to win a Super Bowl. It's too expensive. He makes more money being mediocre. I don't even think it's too expensive. There's a salary cap in the NFL, and yes, you can overspend. But again, the Chiefs have won 2 without overspending. I don't think it's necessarily too expensive. I think it's way riskier. Like the risk reward of it, you could be a 6-win team and then a 5-win team. Like, if you look at what the Patriots have been, and he doesn't want, if you win 6 Super Bowls and then you have to come out of the end of it and they don't know when they're ever going to be relevant again. They had to fire the greatest coach in NFL, or one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. It's debatable still. I know recency bias will say he's the greatest coach in NFL history, Bill Belichick. But to have that, he doesn't necessarily even want that hangover, so he won't go for it. And I don't get, like, I'm somebody who will always say, I'd rather be hungover at work than miss a good time out, because I know I'll never have that good time out. I may not have that again, but they're always going to be work. So I'd rather not enjoy work, which I'm already not going to enjoy as much, than ruin the good time before. And with age, that changes a little bit, but at the same point, that's where I want to go. For Jerry Jones, it's not taking risk. It's not making the trade up in the draft to go get the guy you really want. It's not going after trades where you don't know if that guy's going to take you that next step, but you're not there. And if you don't know you're not there, how do you not want to take that step forward? And that's where he gets me, and being too safe. And Joe says there's nothing safe about the glory hole. And look, Jerry knew what he was saying then too. He knew what he was saying. I don't have that soundbite handy, but I know what you mean when he said that. You could easily list off several things that KC does that are safe. I agree. But saying we traded Tyreek Hill off and didn't get another wide receiver and we'll just draft Rashee Rice and it'll work out, that's what I'm saying is a much bigger risk than some of the other things the Cowboys do. The Cowboys do a lot of things safe, and KC will win because Mahomes has nothing zero to do with being safe, but I get it, you have to talk on a radio show. That's first of all, just say it's just Mahomes is crazy. Because without Travis Kelce, Mahomes is not Mahomes. So you say, well, they have Travis Kelce. Also, the defense won in that Super Bowl. Mahomes wins it in the end, but the defense was incredible. They built on the defensive end, and they said, we have the best quarterback in the NFL, and then we'll have the best defense. We'll be good. There's a lot of reasons they won other than Mahomes. To just say it's Mahomes is a slap to Andy Reid. It's a slap to the defense and Spags and all of that. I get Mahomes is amazing, and you shouldn't have given him the ball down. But if Patrick Mahomes is down by 40, he's not coming back in the Super Bowl. He was able to be in it because of the defense. And so there is other pieces, but that was what it was. And not paying, Spags or not paying Frank Clark was a risk. But they did it, and it worked out in the end. And it's not worked out for them before. And they've lost in playoff games. They haven't been there because those wagers didn't play enough. Now it's easier. You're getting closer and closer, but I don't think the Cowboys are that far off either. I'm not saying you have to go bet the house to try and get it. I'm just saying you need to get closer to doing that than you have in the past. Text says, how many times have you said play safe in the last 5 minutes? Considering it was the point of what I was saying, a lot, I'm sure. Considering it was the point of what I was saying. And yeah, too safe. And yes, R-Dub says you're a horrible, no good, rotten cowboy hater. I've never heard you come across the cowboy haters. You always have the voice on local airwaves. Always happen. I know, and I try to be a little bit more, like, again, I root for the cow. Like, I want that party to be good with the Cowboys. Believe me. All right, let's go behind the burnt orange curtain and do a little hook 'em up replay. Then we'll get back to the text line. I appreciate you guys hanging with me. 512-447-3776. And let's go behind the burnt orange curtain and I hook 'em up replay now on the Sports Complex.
All right, let's talk about the NFL draft a little bit. Dane Brugler has his updated top 100 for the 2024 NFL draft. So he's just rated. You're getting more big board stuff coming out right now, right? Just overall big boards. They're not necessarily mocking where players are going. That's a different science altogether. That's a different skill, because then you actually look at the roster of the team, and you look at the makeup, what their priorities are, what they emphasize, what their draft habits are as an organization, what they usually like to prioritize, what are premium positions for this team, and what they need, as opposed to what the best value at that position could be. So mocking is totally different than big boards. NFL teams, they do their own mocks too, where they look at situationally every team and how they're going to approach that pick. But big board is basically, we're just ranking the best players, period. We're going to rank the best and the top players in the draft. That's why big board stuff is really fun at this time of year. And the big board stuff changes too, because once guys start working out, and then once guys start getting vetted by teams, once guys start interviewing with teams, you'll see teams, move certain guys up. Say the guy may have been their third best cornerback on the board, and then they talk to him, they like him a lot, and he becomes the second best cornerback on the board. So that's the way it goes down. So the updated top 100 for Dane Brugler, and Dane Brugler does really good work for The Athletic. This is, like I said, this is his big board overall right now. So his big board, he's got Byron. Once again, I mean, people love Byron Murphy. He's a big Byron Murphy fan. He's got Byron Murphy as the top Longhorn on his big board. He's got Byron Murphy at 15 on his big board overall. So he's got him, like I said, the 15th highest rated player. And Dane Brugler really loves Byron Murphy. And he's been talking about Byron Murphy being a first-round pick since before the season even started, before the season even ended, I should say. He was talking about him being a first-round pick. So of his big board rankings for the Longhorns, that's it. That's all he's got in the first round. In the top 32, 33 picks, all he has is Byron Murphy among the top 32 prospects for the Longhorns. That's the only one. He's got A.D. Mitchell right outside of that at 35. Remember I told you, most of the research that I've done, big board-wise, has A.D. Mitchell outside the first round. Now, there's going to be a run on wide receivers when the mock draft gets really different than the big board. There will be a run on wide receivers in this draft, because most people's mocks have 3 wide receivers taken in the top 10. So you got 3 wide receivers. As a matter of fact, here's Dane Brugler. He's got, his first pick is Caleb Williams. Second is Marvin Harrison Jr. Third is, this is big board stuff. Like I said, not a mock yet. But his first overall pick is Caleb Williams. Second, Marvin Harrison Jr. Third, Malik Neighbors. Then he's got Drake May. Then he's got Brock Bowers. Then Joe Alton. He's got Romeo Dunze, 7th. And then Jaden Daniels, 8th on his big board. So he's got 3 wide receivers taken in the top 10, period. And that's why there's a chance A.D. Mitchell ends up sneaking into the back of the first round, is because I don't know if he's a first-round talent overall just based on big board status, but that if you want a wide receiver, you might have to, expand your first-round grades for wide receiver, just because the top 3 are going to be all off the board before the top 10 is even up. And that's why A.D. Mitchell could sneak up into the first round. So we'll see if that, because Mel Kiper had, I believe, 7 wide receivers taken in the first round of his draft. And yes, one of those was A.D. Mitchell, but that was like 3 weeks ago. That was a long time ago. So obviously things change in that time span. But Byron Murphy, he's got Byron Murphy at number 15 overall. He's got the next Longhorn on his big board is T'Vondre Sweat, 33. So he's got T'Vondre Sweat, 33 overall, A.D. Mitchell at 35. So his big board, he actually has Sweat ranked higher as a player overall than A.D. Mitchell. I don't disagree with that either. I think T'Vondre Sweat is actually, his value is increasing because the D tackle value, I believe, overall is starting to increase a little bit. Xavier Worthy's got 46 on his big board behind A.D. Mitchell. And I believe, I don't count the number of wide receivers he has, but I believe Xavier Worthy is the eighth highest ranked wide receiver on his big board, but I'll go back and make sure I check that. He's got J.T. Sanders at 50, big board stuff. He's got Jay Brooks at 70. And I believe that's the kind of the end. He goes through his top 100 here, so top 100 prospects. But he's got Jay Brooks at 70. Remember what I told you? Jay Brooks could sneak into the back of the second round. And if he does, I think the Longhorns are going to end up having most of their prospects drafted in the second round. I do believe Byron Murphy's going to be a first-round pick. I think A.D. Mitchell's probably going to drop to the beginning of the second round. It means him and X-Man will probably be drafted right around there, unless, like I said, there's a run on wide receivers, and then he ends up moving up that draft order a little bit. But I think you're looking at J.T. Sanders, X-Man, T'Vondre Sweat, Jay Brooks. I think you're looking at 4 guys potentially, and maybe even 5, depending on how things play out, that are going to be drafted in the second. Longhorns will be drafted in the second round. It'll be a blockbuster, probably all-time great second-round draft for the Longhorn football team. So that second day is going to be really, really exciting. And then after that, I don't know where Jalen Ford's, unfortunately, he's going to drop in the draft, and it has nothing to do with really what he's done. It's more about the value of the position, and it's more about the injury that he had to deal with this whole season. And that has dropped his draft stock a little bit because he didn't make as many splash plays. Done the film this past season not as good as his film was in 2022 because he was fully healthy. So those are things kind of outside of his control. So I haven't seen Jalen Ford in any of the first 2 rounds of any mock draft or any overall big board. I think he's going to be a guy that drafts to the 3rd and the 4th round, and somebody's going to get a steal with Jalen Ford in the 3rd, 4th round. That guy's going to be a starter for somebody one day.
Agreed. And you mentioned earlier that, the Cowboys are interesting in that second round for Jonathan Brooks.
They probably be interested in Jalen Ford, too.
Yeah,
if he drops that far.
You're right about that.
They need linebackers.
Need linebackers for sure. And Longhorn fans know it's highly unlikely Jerry Jones will draft 1, but not 2 Longhorns. Are you kidding me?
Hey, man.
But, man, Jonathan Brooks, and the Cows you mentioned earlier, the Cowboys have a history of second-round gambles, right, where they'll take a guy that they have rated as a first-round pick, but he slipped into the second round. They did it way back with Sean Lee. They did it with Randy Gregory.
They love that.
They did it with Jalen Smith, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. He had a medical injury, obviously, that never was right. But same time, that's about where Jonathan Brooks should be, 56-ish.
Yeah.
This is where you start looking at him going, man, we're 55 picks into this. He's a top 25 player if healthy. And we got him, around late. Yeah, and we need a running back, right? Because the Cowboys would need. If they let Tony Pollard walk,
they will.
Which most expect after franchise tagging him. They need to acquire a veteran running back in either free agency or via trade, and then they need to draft a running back. So, you got to rebuild your running back room, and Jonathan Brooks would be a nice piece. Because Cowboy fans have talked about, man, what about Derrick Henry or what about some of these guys? Well, you could do Derrick Henry and then draft a Jonathan Brooks, and you've got the current and the future.
Yeah, because you bring in a veteran running back. You're not going to bring him in very long. He's a stopgap player for you. But the value you could get for a Jonathan Brooks, if healthy, top running back on the board, that could be tremendous
value. From Hallettsville, he's a state of Texas kid, and you need him. You need a back of the future. Because if Tony Pollard is not, and Zeke Elliott obviously is long gone, you need that person to hand the ball to. Because they got to get back to running the football. They got to get back to being a better running team than they were this year. Because remember, this is also an offense that's likely to lose Tyron Smith, and they've got to figure out how they're going to keep their center, who's also a free agent, Tyler Biadasz. They've got some decisions to make.
No, that's a good point, though. I love the Cowboy. I actually like that Cowboy strategy too. They they gamble in the second round, because second round you're going to get first round talent that'll fall to the second round just because misevaluations and some teams are just bad at the draft. Cowboys are not one of those teams, by the way. Cowboys are actually one of the better drafting teams in the NFL. So you'll get. This is why Belichick loved the second round picks, right? Second round picks, you can get first round value because you'll have guys who drop out of that first round into the second round and miss evaluations by teams. Like I said, some are just bad at it. And the guaranteed money also is cut in half that you owe the players. So the amount of guaranteed money attached to those draft spots in the second round cuts in half immediately. So you get first round talent for half the guaranteed money. That's why that second round is it's money. That's your if you can hit in that second round, there's a good chance. I mean, you're getting probably the best value in the draft potentially, because you're getting a first round guy where you ain't got to pay him the guaranteed bread.
No question.
Yeah.
And it's been hit or miss. I mean, the Cowboys took Trayvon Diggs with a second round pick in 2020, right
there
after CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. And he was kind of a risk too. Remember, he hadn't played a lot of corner at the time when they drafted him. He had only played like 3 years of cornerback. Remember, Nick Saban switched him to corner. He's playing safety and he was playing like wide receiver and he was a return guy. He started crying because he wanted to play wide receiver so bad like his brother. And Nick Saban told him, like, dude, I'm going to make you a whole lot of money. What are you doing? You're going to play. I'm the greatest defensive mind in the history of college football. I'm telling you, you are a great corner, and ends up being an all-pro. But that was a bit of a risk for him too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Last year it was Luke Shoemaker, the tight end out of Michigan. We haven't seen much from him.
None of him, yeah.
I mean, right now the Cowboys draft last year is not a good draft. I mean,
the Mozzie Smith one?
Yeah, Mozzie Smith, Shoemaker, Demario Overshown, unfortunately got hurt. Fehoko didn't do anything. I mean, Deuce Vaughn didn't do much. I mean, last year they got very little out of it to this point. Now, the draft before, they took Tyler Smith, who's a starting offensive lineman. They took Sam Williams. They took Jake Ferguson, took Deron Bland in the 5th round of that, Damone Clark. So, yeah, they hit in 2022. They did not so much last year, but there's still time for a Mozzie Smith and a Shoemaker and DeMarvion Overshown to make an impact. But second-round picks, they've kind of been hit or miss, to say the least.
Yeah, honestly, and the Cowboys understand that. That's why they roll the dice in that second-round pick. Sometimes you're going to hit on those guys. Sometimes it's going to be a miss. But the Cowboys are found because the Cowboys actually do a decent job of drafting in the middle rounds.
Sure they do.
And they're actually one of the better teams at getting undrafted free agents. Who are a quality undrafted free agents that can make their roster. The Cowboys are a really good draft team. I know we talk a lot of, obviously there are a lot of negative critiques about the Cowboys and their organizational habits. Draft-wise, though, they're one of the top 5 best drafting teams in the league in the last, since Will McClay basically kind of took over their personnel decisions for the draft. They're one of the better drafting teams in the league. So, anyway, there you go. That's Dane Brugler's big board. I did have a Longhorn-related take to the Super Bowl. We'll get to that in the next Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain. I think Sark can learn some lessons from Andy Reid. Who can't? Who wouldn't learn some lessons is watching Andy Reid as a play caller? But Andy Reid, the best play-calling head coach in football today. And that's one of the challenges for Sark, right? Sark is a play-calling head coach. And I think Andy Reid shows he shows a lot of reasons why he's such a savvy play calling head coach, and I think Sark can learn a couple of lessons from it, and we'll talk about that next time Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain.
Good stuff there from Hook 'em Up with Ian Robbie, weekday morning 6 to 11 right here on The Horn. We're going to take our last break and wrap things up here on the Sports Complex in The Horn 1019 AM 1260, The Horn app, and hornfm.com. All right, we got to get out of here. Appreciate everybody playing along in the text line 512-447-3776. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We hope you tune in tomorrow and enjoy some more with us here on the Sports Complex. As always, you guys drive the show, so we can't do it. I can't do it just by myself. Yelling for 2 hours is a bit much. So if you guys chime in on the text line, it's always a lot more fun for me. For Chan and Nate, I appreciate you guys too. We'll be back tomorrow talking more, getting you more ready for the draft, getting you more ready for some filling in what happened in Big 12, filling in what happened in the NBA, all of that. We'll come back tomorrow and do more. Until then, be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean. We'll see you next week or see you tomorrow. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Tomorrow for more of the Sports Complex.